Welcome to an Origin of Energy recipe clip. So I'm Aaron McKenzie and I'm going to take you through a lacto-fermenting lesson. So what we're going to look at is different ways to make different lacto-fermented vegetables. So we've got cabbage here, so we're going to make sauerkraut with that. I'm going to do some carrots and some onions, and then I also got a little bit of fennel as well left over from lunch. So we're going to put that together. So the most basic things to remember is to have good jars. These are great, these ones, because they release a little bit of air. You can build up too much pressure and it's just got that pressure release. So what happens is if there's too much, it'll release out. But you do want them airtight, so you don't want any air getting in, you just want air coming out. So because it is lacto-fermentation, so it's without oxygen. So having some good jars, definitely worthwhile, definitely worth the investment. I've got some whey here, so this is just from when we make cheesecake. We separate, you can either use the yogurt if you separate yogurt and get the whey from that, or you have separated milk and you use the curds to make cheesecake, and then you've got the whey that we've got there. But you don't need a lot. You can actually get away with doing it just with water and salt, because you get the natural bacteria that is with the vegetables. So with cabbage, it's got a small amount, it's got cellulose and a small amount of carbohydrate there, and that will feed the bacteria. So that's how you're going to get that lacto-fermentation without oxygen, and then you're going to get the fermentation from the carbohydrate that's within these, and then the bacteria are going to proliferate. And what you'll see over a 2-week period is that the colour of the cabbage changes in the sauerkraut. So here it's quite dark purple, and you'll see in the after photo it's quite a light kind of pink colour. It looks really good on a plate. And the carrots will change slightly as well, onions, and the fennel. The unfortunate thing when we do a mix with the carrot and the cabbage colour will kind of go through and blend in with it. So, but you'll still get a bit nicer if you do this with a white cabbage with some fennel and some onion, so that way it stays a different colour. But you can use all different vegetables. Some of them are a bit more tricky to get it right. Cabbage I find is the easiest, and it depends on the temperature, time of year, as to how long that's going to take. So there's lots of benefits as well to have the lacto-fermented vegetables. It's a great probiotic for the gut, and that's why I make sure I've always got it as part of my nutrition, throughout the year. So let's get started. So I've just peeled some of the cabbages and then just cut them up small enough to pop them in here. So I'm just going to do all of those guys and just thinly slice them with this. Just makes it a lot quicker and a lot easier to pound them in there, because you do need to pound them a little bit. So you do need something like this, so that way it's a quicker process and the bacteria can get through and break it down when it's lacto-fermenting. So I'm just going to pop these in. So the cabbage will make your hands a little bit purple, just like kind of beetroot. But if you did want to, you could just use some rubber gloves, some really thin ones, to work with it. But the next stage after you grate it, just pop it in a jar. So I'm just going to pop it in here. Try not to make too much mess. Once I've got that full, I'm going to pound that down so it's a quicker process for the lacto-fermentation. And then the juices of the cabbage will come out. So this is what was used to avoid scurvy by the Germans. That's what they're called, krauts, whereas the English were called limeys because they used limes to avoid scurvy, the sailors. It's pretty cool. So yeah, lacto-fermentation is a great way to preserve vegetables as well. So for example, like those carrots were starting to go a little bit soft in the cafe, and we thought, okay, well, we did carrots the other day, so we're probably not going to use them for a couple more days. But even better, we're just going to ferment them, and then 2 weeks later they're in a state where they're going to be able to be used, but used in dishes and for a lot longer than they would if we just kind of let them keep going soggy. So it's a great way to stretch things out, and that's what you do in countries where you have a seasonal limitation to what you can eat throughout the year. So you do things like this so that way you can ensure that you've got access to food all year round. So next up, we've pounded that in. So we've got that jar nice and full. I've used about 1.5 of those cabbages in this 2-litre jar. You can probably pound it in a little bit more. So then I'm just going to have about, well, you can put, depending on how much weight you have, even if you just put 1 tablespoon in, it's okay. I like to put a bit more just because it speeds up the process. And then you can do the same to about a teaspoon to a tablespoon of salt. And then I'll just put filtered water in there. And that's pretty much done. And then we're just going to come back to that in 2 weeks when it's ready to eat. So fill that one up. So I've just got my water in there, and that's now ready to go on the shelf. So we've normally got some different things going. We've got some separated milk, we've got some kefir going, we've got some kombucha, we've got some tibicos going as well. So it's just going to live there and do its thing. So the other one I'm going to make, quite simple, just with the cabbage, carrot and onion. So I'll get that, I'll just do it, layer it through. So put a little bit of this in. And some fennel as well, it's a nice flavour. And I'll just whiz these guys quickly. So we're just going to pop all that in there. Get all that into the bowl, mix it through a bit. So yeah, the onion's going to pickle nicely. But you know, people do pickling where they'll add sugar to it. So this isn't adding, you just got the carbohydrates within the vegetables. But it is a great flavour that you get at the end of it, and great accompaniment to meals. So especially if you're having something quite fatty, I really like to have the lacto-fermented vegetables with it. And because the carbohydrate within it has been converted into fatty acids by the bacteria, it's also a good way to have your veggies and a low carb way to have them as well. And it increases the nutrient value. So you're going from something that might not be as digestible, especially cabbage, you've got to cook it, or you've got to ferment it to get the benefits, because if you have it raw, it's goitrogenic and it's actually not that healthy for you. So this way you can actually unlock the nutrients. So you've got the benefit of being able to store the produce like they would in Russia. So as an example, I was in Russia recently with my fiance, and her mum just, you know, they have a house in the city, or they have an apartment in the city, and they've got a village house. And in the village house, they grow all their vegetables there through spring, summer and autumn, and then they harvest it all, and then they make winter versions of everything by pickling it and lacto-fermenting it like this. So they've got a kitchen full of all these jars of all the different fermented vegetables that they'll have through winter, and then have throughout the year as well, because they're quite healthy. So very simple. This one's nice and colourful. Just mix all that in, scrape it out. Then just going to repeat that same process of adding whey, salt, because you want that slightly acidic environment for the lacto-fermentation. Fill it up with water. 2 weeks, it's all done. Get to enjoy it. People here at the cafe will get to enjoy it as well. So see you next time. Ciao.